Chapter 1. Scenting. Present day. The knife was digging into her thigh. She was not supposed to be here. The thought kept ringing through Marana's head on repeat. Her nerves stretched taut even as she tried to appear aloof. Holding her full champagne glass aloft, she pretended to sip from it, her eyes constantly scanning the crowd. While she knew taking a few sips of the bubbly would do wonders to calm her frazzled nerves, Marana refrained. She needed a clear head, more than liquid courage for tonight. Maybe. Hopefully. The party was in full swing, hosted in the sprawling lawns of the home of someone in the Maroney family. Damn outfit. It was a good thing she had done as much research as she could in the last few days. Marana glanced around the well-lit garden from the shadows. Seeing the faces she had seen in the news over the years, a few she had seen in her own house growing up. She saw the soldiers of the outfit, milling around with stoic faces. She saw the women, mostly decorating the arms of the men they were there with. She saw the enemies. Ignoring the itch from her wig, Marana just observed. She had taken great care to look like someone else tonight. The long black gown she wore hid the knives on her thighs, one of which had somehow twisted and was trying to dig into her. The bracelet on her hand had been a purchase from the dark web, with a hidden slot for an aerosol poison that wasn't available in the market. And she tied her dark hair tightly to her head, donning a silky wig of strawberry blonde hair, her lips siren red. It wasn't her, but it was necessary. She'd been planning this night for days. She'd been relying on this plan to work for days. She couldn't screw it up, not after being so close. She looked at the mansion looming behind the crowd. It was a beast. There was no other way to describe it. Like an ancient castle buried in the hills of Scotland. The house, an odd hybrid of modern mansion and primeval castle, was a beast. A beast with something of hers in its belly. The cool air fragrant with the night blooms. Marana surreptitiously shook off the chills trying to lick at her skin. The sound of a man's boisterous laughter drew her attention. Eyes lingering on the built, gray-haired man, laughing with other men in the north corner of the property. Marana studied him. His face was wrinkled with age, hands clean from where she could see. Oh, how he had blood on those hands. So much blood. Not that anyone in their world didn't, but he'd carved a niche for himself as the bloodiest of them all, including her father. Lorenzo Bloodhound Maroney was the boss of the Tenebrae outfit, his career longer than 4 decades. His rap sheet longer than her arm. His cold-blooded attitude a thing of admiration in their world. Marana had been around people like him long enough not to let that shake her. Or rather, not let it show. Beside Lorenzo stood his older son Dante the Wall Maroney. While his pretty face could fool some, Marana had done enough research not to underestimate him. Built like a wall, the man towered over almost everyone, his physique solid. If rumors were to be believed, he had taken up a key role in the organization almost a decade ago. Marana pretended to sip her champagne, exchanging a polite smile with a woman who glanced her way. She finally let her eyes wander to the man who stood silently beside Dante. Tristan Kane. He was an anomaly. The only non-blood member to have taken the oath with blood in the family. The only non-blood member to be that high up in the outfit. No one knew exactly where he was placed in the hierarchy, but people knew he was very high up. Everyone had theories as to why, but no one really knew for sure. Marana took him in. He stood tall, just an inch or so shorter than Dante, in a casual 3-piece black suit sans the tie. His dark blonde hair was almost a dark brown, sheared close to his head, his eyes a light color from the distance. Marana knew they were blue, a striking blue. She'd seen pictures of him, always candid shots in which he looked surprisingly blank. Marana was used to expressionless faces in their world, but he took it up a notch. While his muscular frame was attractive, it wasn't the reason Marana couldn't look away. It was because of the stories she'd heard about him in the last few years, mostly by eavesdropping on conversations, especially her father's. As the stories went, Tristan Kane had been the son of Lorenzo Moroni's personal bodyguard, who had died while protecting the boss almost 20 years ago. Tristan had been young, with a mother who had taken off after her husband's death. Lorenzo, for reasons unknown, had taken the young boy under his wing and personally trained him in skills of the trade. And today, Mr. Kane was a son to Bloodhound Moroni. Some said Moroni favored him more over his own blood. In fact, word was, after Moroni's retirement, Tristan would be the boss of the outfit. Not Dante. Tristan the Predator Kane. They called him the Predator. His reputation preceded him. He rarely went on the hunt, but when he did, it was over. When he did, he went straight for the jugular. No distractions. No playing around. For all his unruffled attitude, the man was more lethal than the knife cutting into her thigh. He was also the reason she had come to the party. She was going to kill Tristan Kane. Life as the daughter of the boss of the Shadowport family had prepared her for a lot of things. Not this. Despite growing up surrounded by crime, Marana had been surprisingly sheltered from the ugliness of their world. She'd been homeschooled, gone to university, and now freelanced as a developer. All very plain. That was exactly why she was so not equipped to handle this. She'd not been prepared to infiltrate the house of her father's enemies and, by extension, hers. And she'd definitely not been prepared to murder that said enemy. Maybe she didn't really have to kill him? Perhaps kidnapping would work just as well? As if... For over an hour, Marana watched Tristan Kane carefully without being too obvious, waiting for him to just move. Finally, after staying glued to Moroni's side with a dark scowl on his handsome face, he detached himself and moved to the bar. Marana debated whether to approach him out in the open or wait for him to head into the house. After a split second of indecision, she decided on the latter. The first option was way too dangerous, and was she exposed, it would not only mean her death sentence but a war between the two families. A mob war. She shuddered, just thinking of all the morbid tales she'd heard over the years. She also wondered if she was being logical in wanting to kill the man. Maybe not. But she did need to get into the house and find where he was hiding her codes. It had all started as a dare from her ex-boyfriend. Not that anyone knew about him. Being a developer himself, he had challenged her to create the most complex set of codes she could. Being a sucker for dares that she was, she had succumbed. Those codes were her Frankenstein. A powerful monster that went wrong, out of her control. They could digitally deface anyone, extract out every dirty secret from the deepest parts of the web, and destroy entire governments, entire mobs, if it were to fall into the wrong hands. They had fallen into the worst hands possible. Her asshole of an ex, Jackson, had stolen the codes when she was done 3 weeks ago, and disappeared. It was when she'd started to track him that she'd discovered Jackson had actually been sent to get close to her by the outfit. More specifically, Mr. Kane. How he'd learned about her skills and the codes, she didn't know. She was screwed. So screwed. There was no way she could tell her father. None. The offenses against her were too high. dating an outsider, writing a time bomb of codes without any protection, but worst of all, knowing where the codes had ended up. Her father would kill her without batting an eye. She knew it. And frankly, she didn't care.